Coaching is a little different from managing to me. Coaching, I have to be, or let's say the opposite. Manager, you have to have a little bit more distance between the players, at least in my experiences, whereas a coach, I'm probably more the middleman. So for me as a coach, my thing with players was trying to get in as soon as possible and learn their personalities and their habits, what they like to do. Yeah. And then that way I can work with them accordingly when it comes to the mechanical part of the baseball and hitting and things of that nature. I tried to learn as much as I could about that person first, and then I could jump in and try to figure out maybe their swing. Like I said, a lot of the stuff that you go with hitters, especially in professional baseball, in my experience, it's not a mechanical thing. So most of those guys have mechanical talent, or they have tools, and then it's usually something up here that gets them out of whack.
Out of whack, sure.
Probably in both of them, communicating. I think I'm a good communicator.
Yeah.
I know as a manager, one of the things that I, having only done it 2 years, the first year my dad really stressed on to me is being proactive with my decisions, right or wrong. He was taught in the military that do something, even if it's wrong. Don't just stand there. And at times in baseball, you get in those spots where, should I bring a guy in, should I not? And you get caught up in some, hey, you know, just I try to be proactive with my decision making, and then I just deal with it later on, you know. But at the same time, from a managing standpoint, I've had to learn, have a plan, same as hitting, same as fielding. Have a plan, and have a plan A, B, C, and D, because there's no two games the same. There's no two situations that happen the same. You have to have plans, backup plans, so to speak. Try to prepare yourself as much. You know, many times at any level, you don't have a ton of information on your opponent. So for me in the ABL, playing similar to tournament type style, I have to go with the strengths a lot of times of my players, as opposed to trying to figure out all the weaknesses on the other teams, whether or not their left-handed hitter can't hit a lefty. Well, I don't have that information. I don't have the statistical information. I can't get that. So I have to go with maybe a pitcher that, you know, righty or lefty, that can get left-handers out late in the ball game. Those are things that, as a manager, I just try to make sure that I'm prepared, that I'm trying to motivate my guys daily, and that I'm making sure that I communicate with them. I think that's so important. For me, when I play, usually my best either managers or coaches were guys that I had an idea about what they wanted from me, you know, and I try to communicate that. And probably lastly, from a management standpoint, I try to put my guys in a position to be successful. So if I bring a guy in a pinch hit, I'm trying to bring in a guy that pinch hit that I think can get a hit off a guy. I try not to put guys in positions to be unsuccessful. I try not to bring a left-handed hitter in against a left-handed pitcher throwing 95 and this guy's sitting on the bench the whole game. Things that, well, probably not have a good chance. So I try to do that. Hitters, I try to match up my hitters with their pitchers and lineups and things of that nature where I think they have the best chance of being successful. Defensively, where I put guys out on the field, I may take a guy that has a ton of athleticism and put him in the outfield because I think he can handle it more than someone that might technically be an outfielder. Well, I don't want to put a guy in a bad situation or put a guy where he's might not have the chance of being successful, you know, and that comes to a lot of games that people consider big games, that are important games. You don't want to put a guy out there if he hasn't played in pressure ABL games. Those are things that I try to think beforehand, and if I can put guys in positions to be successful, then you just kind of let the chips fall where they may. When I started coaching, for me, you know, I'd played and everything, but I had never coached. So what I did was I went around and I asked a ton of questions. I asked a ton from people that have done it, either played or coached or done some kind of management. Yeah. I mean, I talked to people about how to manage when I came to do here that weren't baseball people, but they'd done managing before. Because I talked to my dad a lot. He didn't play at pro ball, but he had done different in his job, managing, things of that nature. So I tried to find out, I guess, what I needed to do. Like, so far as a coach, if I'm a hitting coach and I don't have a ton of experience of being a hitting coach, then what I try to do is ask people a lot about maybe we'll talk like fundamentals, things like that. Okay, what does a hitter need to do in order to be successful? So I'm going to ask people, what do you think a hitter needs to do? What do you think a hitter needs to do? So I'd find out a lot of that and write it down. I think asking questions is probably the biggest thing, or in order to learn, you know, is to ask people questions that have had that experience or have been exposed to that. That's one thing. I think to remember when you are coaching that you're a teacher, first of all, and that's at every level. Even for me, managing, that's probably the thing. I remind myself, I'm teaching these guys, you know, that I'm not just managing them and saying, hey, go do this, that. I'm actually trying to teach them how I feel the game should be played, or I feel things will work in certain situations. So I think ask questions, remember you are teaching, and patience. That's extremely important, and that's at every level. That's at every level. Everyone will tell you coaches that they didn't like usually were guys or ladies that were impatient. Couldn't tolerate not being able to do something. They were impatient. They didn't have and usually when someone's impatient, then you feel you're not getting the same kind of instruction because they're almost there because they're punching a clock, or they feel that you don't have the talent, so they're not going to put the time in. And when you're teaching someone, you want them to feel that their effort and energy they're putting on you is actually genuine. I know we talked about college earlier, and if you can get every player to have the mentality on your team that he'll run through that wall for you, then you got a team that's going to be listening. They're going to want to get better. They're going to want to do well, not just for themselves, but for the organization, for you, all those things that go into successful teams, organizations. It's a lot of time goes to how the approach is, and it's not the X's and O's of the game. It's more how you approach trying to teach them. And that's probably, those are probably the things I think for teaching guys. When you're teaching someone and you're putting the time in, that you want them to feel like whatever, that they're a reflection of you. So if our kids go out there and they catch the ball and they put the ball in play and throw the ball well, it's because they're a reflection of the people that have worked with them to do that. Same token, if they run around and act fools and they're screaming at umpires and all that, then that reflects back on you. You know, I go back to my dad with a lot of things, but his thing when we were kids was, don't go out of the house and be getting in trouble because whatever you do reflects on me. And I don't do that stuff, so I don't want the negative reflection. And you get taught when you get into organizations, obviously it's not just, you know, your behavior doesn't just affect how you are, it affects the people around you. So I think from a coaching standpoint, we should stress that the stuff that we teach these kids, that the result you see is reflection on, you know, not just obviously we talk about the fundamentals I'm trying to teach these kids, but also us being able to make sure we're motivating, you know, and everyone's different. So the things that we use to motivate one kid might not work on that kid. So we have to be able to identify those things and try to maximize each kid mental strengths, their physical strengths, emotional strengths. Those are things that I think we should focus on, or that the coaches should feel that when, similar to for a player, when we left, that we got the most out of every kid. As for me as a hitting coach, I thought every year I tried to, when I finished, have every player that I felt like, and every year I had at least one player that I couldn't, and I put in so much, but at the same time that was something that was the challenge for me, because I can give information to 10 guys and 9 of them go, yeah, and the 10th doesn't. And so it might be the way I told them. It might be something was lost in translation. You know, and those are the things that you work for as a coach, to try to get your point across or your message across for them to understand. I had a guy tell me that one of the things when I first started coaching, one of the most important things with teaching is it's not what you say, it's what they hear. So if I tell you, I want you to run right now and throw that ball and hit the first baseman, well, he might hear me say, I need you to grab the ball and just throw it in the dirt or whatever. He just doesn't hear it. So I have to make sure that what I tell a kid, that he's able to not repeat back to me word for word, but maybe the same idea. So if I tell a kid that to hit the ball to right field, you need to make sure you get a pitch that you can handle, then he could say, you know what, for me, if to hit a ball, I'm right-handed, hit a ball to right field, I know that if I get me something that's in the middle of the plate to away, that I have a better chance, then we're on the same page.
Yeah.
You know, not, well, you know, you said something I could handle. In BP last week, he threw me a ball right here and I chicken winged it. Well, then we're still lost. Let's get on the same page. And I think,
Effective communication.
yeah. And the sooner you get guys on the same page, then the work goes into the teaching. And you know, like I said, I tried to learn as a player. I tried to learn as much about the other guy who was pitching against me. Even when I was a kid, you try to learn if you can, their weaknesses or whatever they have. And then as a coach, I tried to learn as much about the players. You know, the physical stuff we see, I can see if a kid can hit, I can see if a guy can field, we can work with that. But, you know, what do I need to do in order to motivate him, to maximize him so that he can make all the routine plays? And when it's late in the ball game, he can have the same concentration he had early in the game instead of just going through the motions late in the game. Well, what do I need to do with him? And I think that's, you know, something that we need to stress with everyone.